Now, listening is
hard.
Getting back to communication skills. Okay, let me just reiterate for a moment. One of the things we said about communicating is communicating directly. This goes back to Ashley and something that I think
when you do this, it makes me feel is important.
So Ashley, is saying you don't talk behind each other's backs. You go to the person that you are at issue with, and you talk directly to them, because in families, that happens.
Unless you're willing to say it to the person you're talking about, don't say it to anyone else.
You're wasting your time. You're being unfair. You're not honoring yourself or your relationship with this other person.
And you're not actually seeking a resolution.
Right.
Because you and I, Mom and I, were supposed to solve whatever sister and I have going on between us. No, you can't solve that for us. For me, I have to go to her.
Right.
We have to talk about it.
Okay, so the second thing, take it to the source. The second thing then would be listening.
Softly.
What a concept.
With a soft heart, willingly.
Something that I have found a little later than I wish it had been with you girls is I was a screamer, I was a yeller and a hollerer, and, Ashley, you and Y both have told me what it did to you, that it was completely the opposite of the thing I sought to achieve as a result of screaming, was that it shut you down, it sent you scurrying. It was absolutely the worst thing I could do.
And I'd like to add to that, too, for the parents out there, you have to remember how destructive it is for other siblings to see a sibling get yelled at. Yeah. Because it didn't just affect me when you yelled at me, it traumatized me when you yelled at her.
Right. So, don't yell. Don't raise your voice. If you can learn this skill, you're going to see drastic and immediate changes in your family. If you get your body posture and get yourself relaxed enough to sit back and receive everything this person is saying, you are going to detonate the bomb. You're going to defuse them to an extent that's going to shock you.
Also, if your child is under 5 feet tall, get down to their level.
That's interesting. Get on eye level.
Yeah. I mean, you see it with animals when you're introducing yourself to a dog. The way they change when you get down on their level, they're no longer intimidated.
So what would happen since you all are children, how would you have responded when I was upset with something you'd done, and I simply maybe pulled up a chair and sat down with open arms instead of folding my arms across my chest in a tight way?
I think we're thinking of another family. I don't know.
Oh, we're having the fantasy segment?
How would it have changed?
It would have done so many. It would have made you feel accessible. It would have made you feel
valuable.
Yeah, it would
validated in your feelings. Something else too, I want to say that for my child, for him to know that he's good, but what he's doing is not, so that you don't take your whole identity and throw it, over here and think that you're bad. There's a way to say, you know what, I expect more of you than that is fine. I think there are certain things that a parent has to have the ability to experience with their children, but I think once you get destructive, it just shuts them off. They don't hear a word you're saying. They're thinking of their next defense. They want to get out of there. And I've always said it's better to separate than to break the spirit of someone. It's better to say, look, I'm taking a walk for 10 minutes. I'll be back. Probably will save your relationship.
So step out of the room when you see that you can't control yourself, and do whatever you have to take. Do your deep breathing or whatever to get yourself ready to be that listener.
And that anger is hidden hurt.
Exactly, that it's such a powerful and dynamic mask for so much. I have found when I meditate, I will occasionally get into a place where my mind is like a monkey. It just absolutely will not sit still. And if I manage to calm my mind down, I usually get mad about something. I'm starting to get really frustrated. And when I get through that, invariably, I start to cry. It happens every single time. And this isn't necessarily on a weekly basis, but I will definitely go through phases where it's very concentrated. If I get through anger, there's always a much more vulnerable emotion underneath. And another thing I want to throw in here is when we're advising people as to how to approach their incendiary conversations, don't forget you do have permission to feel your feelings. We're not saying, okay, you can't be mad. Just try not to be mad in these particular ways because you're not going to achieve anything.
But think about why you're mad and try to figure out, why am I feeling this way?
And something I'd like to add, and this is kind of, it's a further evolution of it, you have permission to be angry with me. When you really have a bond with someone, then I think that you can express anger and fury, because I will know that it's not about me per se. It's about you being a whirling dervish for a minute and really needing to get something out of your system. I think when you're really safe with people, you can go off. And there's an interesting thing that we have, that Sister and I have between us, and that is, if she's going to be irrational, if she's going to go on that kind of a jag, then I'm going to compensate in the other direction. And if she goes on a certain tangent, then I'm going to be the calm one, and it goes back and forth. It's almost like chemically we shift.
Also, too, one more thing I want to throw in there, because it's my opportunity, is how important group discussion is. Because something very powerful happens when families are willing to sit down and each person go through what their experience is. Because then you start to get out of yourself and you realize that, because two people, sometimes you get intoxicated. You can throw it back and forth so many times that you two just get in this. I think that there's a third person there sometimes that's important to include the others and ask them, well, how do you see that? And sometimes you'll learn something that you didn't know by sitting there with more than just the person you're fighting with to find out what they see, because they might have something that's so much more objective that you didn't even think about.